the answer is in specialization. I feel like it's always has been, and then it grew to this thing where like technology gets better and you can offer more services with AI or without AI. It's just easier to do a lot more services within our industry, but harder to do them at a higher level. And the advice is to specialize and focus because you don't have time to learn it all.
Welcome to the Entrepreneur Studio. I'm Chris Allen, and today I'm joined by Randall Hartman, founder and interactive creative director of one of Denver, Colorado's most innovative creative agencies, Groundwrk. Randall, welcome to the Entrepreneur Studio.
Hey, good to talk to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So you describe Groundwrk as living at the intersection of technology and brand. So what does that look like in practice when you're working with a client, and how do you bring those two elements together?
Yeah. So brands live online now, and they have for what 20 years now or so, but it's just getting more and more integrated online. And listening to one of your past podcasts with Seth Godin, he was saying how like it is in how you answer your emails, how you answer your phone, and that's really like I was listening. I was like, oh, that's exactly like like where Groundwork lives. It's just not a logo or your website that's on a template, and you could put any brand into this template, and the website will work. That's like not how we operate. But we're we take a deep dive into our clients' brands and really create something that's unique to them that no one else can take. So and sometimes it's a website, sometimes it's branding, other times it's a video game that we have done. Most recently, we're doing one for a large financial firm where their mascot is running through different offices and it's really creating some really cool like team interaction all across the nation. So really, we like to just be able, we're proud to be able just to kind of implement our clients' brands in different you know, in different mediums, whether it's like I said, website or like print design, digital,
Yeah.
whatever that might be.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things that's, as a marketer, right, I always think about, um, you know, when you have a brand, right, you have a brand system that typically that you want to use, but
Yeah.
like you got to bring it to life somehow so that people can experience it, right?
Yeah.
So how do you sort of think about in those first conversations when you and the team are trying to figure out what you're going to do to bring the brand to life? What are some of the things that you guys, do that maybe is different
Mm.
to try and understand what a company is really trying to do with their brand?
Yeah. I mean, we start every project with like we call them like stakeholder input or stakeholder survey. So what you say to your client or when you ask a client, like, all right, what is it that you do best? They're gonna tell you something really logical, right? They're like, oh, we have this product or this software or our service is best, blah, blah, blah. And then ultimately that client ends up going to another company, bringing us with them, and then they say they're the best at that company too, with this, they're doing the same thing, right?
Yeah.
So what we like to do is we talk to not only internal key stakeholders such as like their C-suite or management level or even all the way down. Some companies like in AEC, which would be architecture, engineering, consultant, or
Hmm.
construction, really big on recruiting. So we'll talk to a bunch of new recruits and new people that came to that company from another one. Um, and then we actually talk to like our clients and say like, what is it about them? Like, what is it about company X that makes them sticky? What is it that they do best? What is it that they can do better? And that helps us get this full picture of like, here's what the audience is saying. Then we do online research and see like, what are they doing? What's the reputation like online? What are people saying about them, about the products, the services, reviews?
Hmm.
And then what are they saying internally? And then we put all that together as kind of like our sounding board. And it's nice because we get some data to reach back on. So if we presenting an idea, and then someone in the C-suite or so that's not part of the project, love to have their say, which is great. They're paying the bills, they can. Um, we could point back to the data and be
Yeah.
like, here's what your clients are saying about you. And sometimes we'll get a lot of really interesting stuff. We're like, oh, when we ask what can they be doing better, they'll bring up a sales email that wasn't answered with before like 2 weeks.
Hmm.
And so they're like, it will bring up little things like that that will
Yeah.
actually help them kind of like fix the holes in their brand, if you will, the brand experience.
That's awesome. So you're helping them clean up a lot, not just the website, but just, even how they operate. Because the reputation, right, is how you operate and how you deliver on your commitment.
Yeah, 100%. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's your promise, I think, is what Seth said, right?
Yeah.
And it isn't just, providing people with the services, how you go across it. And now I don't know if CX is a big term in the
Yep.
industry, right? Customer experience, and there's customers experience departments. They're like, I have friends that do it. I have my wife is on the customer experience team in a large consulting firm, and it's the little things you would think that you wouldn't think are a big deal to these customers.
Yeah.
People going through the process, whether it's pots and pans or cancer, literally going through cancer treatment.
Yeah. Well, website, I always say like your website's your best salesperson.
Yeah,
So one of the things that I really like about what you guys are doing is it isn't just aesthetics and design, right? It has to actually, the website's got to do something for your business.
yeah,
So talk to us a little bit about like, some of the things you sort of believe or expect websites to do for companies.
yeah. So I hate best practices, and while if you were creating templates and selling 500 templates a year, websites, right? You know what website template is, right? You go on Squarespace, you go to WordPress, you go into that environment, and then you just put your logo and your branding in there. They're gonna follow best practices, and whether that may be a call to action throughout the whole page, where it's like click here, get with us today, or whatever. Um, those are fine for like the masses, but when we get into each individual project, we start with a couple of things. We give the user credit. um, we look at the demographics. All right, they're educated, not educated. um, that lets us know, that kind of leads our design, where we say like we don't out design our audience, right? So if we're working with a rheumatoid arthritis center in Colorado, which project we did, we know that their audiences are in pain, and they're just looking for appointments to get their infusions. They're not caring about a cool drop down navigation or a
Yeah.
cool
Yeah.
hover effect. Same with we're working with Jefferson County on their like Section 8 housing. It's not called Section 8 anymore. It's called something else. But on that website, like they don't care about a really cool web experience. They just need something quick that they can get the support that they need from the
Yeah.
community. But when you go up to these larger ones, like whether it's Vail Resorts or Fathom Events or Tough Shed or Tacos Tequila Whiskey here in town, like people want an experience and they want that. And we give them credit. They know how to use a site. They know how to scroll. They know what they're on the site for. They're not landing on, some SaaS product to mean like, what does this company do? Oh, I didn't know I needed this warehouse software for my 100,000
Exactly.
employees. You know what I mean? That's just not how people work. But it's hard to get that from the data, right? Because data is going to be like, oh, people spend 2 seconds before they scroll. I'm like, sure, but when you go onto Rivian site or something, you might spend your experience is a little different there than as if you were going to go to make a reservation at a restaurant. So,
Yep. Yeah.
um, so it is just starts with those kind of two things: is who we talking to, and then where are the users at in their life? What education do they have? Are they used to looking at websites? What kind of cars do they drive? If they were celebrities, who would they be? And that helps us
Mhm.
kind of like frame up this persona that we're talking to.
Yeah, it's awesome. You guys need to be inspired, right? As creatives.
Oh my god, yeah, and that's a big thing. We look at inspiration all over the world. We never look at our past projects ever. Like there's other agencies in town who we're fans of, nationally, internationally. We reach out, we submit our work to the same sites and try to help our industry grow. And just recently, one of the firms I really liked was looking at like copying our video games, and I'm like, I love that. Like we did something where another big agency was like,
Yeah,
they're doing something cool. Let's see if we can do that. So.
that's awesome. Well, that sounds to me, right? Like, you maybe have done some rethinking of traditional models about how you run your business,
Yeah.
right? So, like, when tell us a little bit about like, sort of what happened before Groundwork, real quick, to help everybody understand how you were rethinking the traditional agency model.
Yeah. So, coming out of school, 2000, man, I was like 5.5 years in school, took the party route, graduated Colorado State, didn't get a job, was working at a bar because I really wanted to be in a creative agency. It was just like, I don't know if there's still that allure, that kind of like, oh, an agency is cool. But back then it was really hard to get into. Started with a free internship where I commute from Fort Collins to Denver, 2 or 3 days a week. Um, finally got a job at $20,000 a year, doing running accounts or, being an account manager. Kind of worked my way up there, left that shop for Zen Man. And that's really where I got my big brand experience with like Remax, Frontier Airlines, Golf Tech, and, um, there's Grable, a few other ones. Um, while I was there, I was director of business accounts, uh, director of business development, actually. So that's one thing where I don't understand how business owners start when they don't have that. I literally have sales and marketing background.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I feel for those engineers and writers or just idea folks that don't have that background to give business because mine has always been in the like business development side,
Yep.
but always with my hands in my client's work, like working in the background with the team and always like, I would sell this vision. I want to make sure that vision came to life. Um, and then I went to a small shop called Bove, who they were also purchased, and they wanted to be like Zen Man, and they like handed over the keys. They're like, you could rename it, you could do whatever you need with the staff. We just want to like get the kind of clients that you got at Zen Man. Um, and I was 30, 31, 32. And I was like, yeah, this is a great opportunity. And it was the hardest year of my life because the owners were great. They were like, what do we need to do? And we ended up going on EOS,
Yeah.
EOS,
I knew
Entrepreneur Operating
EOS. Mhm.
System, and had some really, really tough conversations. They had three owners, and one owner ended up not being there anymore. And the consultant was like, "You need to let Randall be the CEO," and so that created some tension. And I'm just not. I'm a type 2 on the Enneagram, so I just want to please people.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I made enemies and I was polarizing, and it was just the worst, most unnatural year of my life. And started Groundwrk out of that. And with the goal of not offering digital marketing and not having a big bloated staff and a big office building where we were kind of a slave to our overhead. Um, just kind of saw everywhere I worked at throughout my career had this like busy but broke agency life where we're like really busy doing cool work, but like barely making the bills, which
Yeah.
I like. I just eh, why grow a non-profitable business, I guess, is was my big thing, but or was my big issue with those companies. But they're all great people, and
Yeah.
they really proud of what we're building at Groundwork, and they're like, "You're doing it right, keep it going." And so they're like some of my biggest fans.
Yeah. So, like, one of the things that I enjoyed that you talked about was the way that you sort of have flex staff, right? Where
Yeah.
you've got, the committed staff, and then you've got these other ways of, getting creatives on specific projects to have flex staff. So, tell us about like how your agency operates maybe a little bit differently where you're not busy but broke.
Yeah, so, I think that everything comes with cash flow, right? There are times we're busy but broke, and then we're like, okay, like this isn't what we wanted to build. What are we doing wrong? But yeah, our overhead's very simple. We have, we work out of kind of like a WeWork here at downtown, and we have an office with myself and Alicia, who's our digital producer, and that we're the only two on salary. And then we have about, 3 to 4 nearly full time designers and another 2 or 3 developers, and then some overseas that we work with. Um, but the goal you know, is to allow the creatives to work on projects that they want and not just shove them
Yeah.
projects, right? Where if you're a designer every day and you have, a project manager scheduling out your calendar and you got, oh, I have a dental website to work on, followed by a movie theater brand, like it just isn't it's not conducive for their workflow and to get to produce the best work. They're just trying to hit a deadline. And so with us, we're just like, hey, we have our core team that we stick to, but they all know they have to continually give us the best work and basically make my life easy where I'm not making a lot of edits for them to keep coming back. And so I like to say they want the project, they don't need the project. Everybody on the project team says yes to it. And the client doesn't we operate just like our big shops that we came from. So we don't hide our model, and it hasn't mattered to these big brands. At first I was kind of like, oh, I don't want to, I don't want to tell anybody that we're
Yeah.
contractors.
Yeah.
No, it never happens. No one's tried to steal them. If they do, I think there may be once or twice, and my team would reach out to me. I'm like, dude, make your money. Like, go right ahead. It's a different product if it's not as part of our team. But like, I'm not like I'm maybe too loose with it to be honest. Like, I'm like, yeah, go right ahead. You can, take what you learned here and make this other company better in some way. Um, so yeah, it's a learning process. Like I still go through business school every day, and it's mostly cash flow management. So our job isn't it's funny. I mean, like being an EO, you hear a lot of cash flow issues, mostly due to like a lack of sales. But like our fractional CFO is like, you don't have a sales problem. We just have profitability problem and cash flow problem because we're so project based. So,
Yep.
it just, kind of create, solve one problem just to create a couple more, but they're definitely not as bad as like, being busy but broke.
Yeah. You're like, I need the recurring revenue to support my massive project work.
Yeah, yeah, like recurring revenue you would make a guess like, oh, probably SEO or digital marketing, but it's like, no, like we don't do that. We work with partners and we refer that work out, but we do web maintenance, and that's kind of our lifeline. That's it's not sexy. It's web maintenance at 250 a month up to 1500 a month. There's the different things you get, but like there's clients I haven't talked to in years, and like that is they're getting a good service. Our dev team is taking care of their site every
Yep.
quarter, some every month. They're getting a good product, a good service for 250, which is important to me. And like it's so cheap that they're just like, why would we ever kill that? And so
Yeah.
times that by 30, we net, 14K or so. It's not huge revenue for us yet, but it's growing and
Yeah.
organically. And um, that's going to be the kind of engine that we'll be able to do whatever we want with once it covers overhead.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. Well, one of the things that, growth wise, you started, I liked some of the conversation we had around ethics and the ethics of growth. Um, you have a pretty distinct point of view on what's sort of okay for you growth wise and what's maybe not okay for you growth wise. So talk to us a little bit about like that conversation and unpack how you think about growth and how you do sort of the ethically or maybe the ethical approach to growing.
Yeah, I think and again, like I said, like what's the point of growing a non-profitable business? And that just literally is something I said to my team like last year, right? Where I'm like, oh, that's another, you gotta write that down and remember that. But like, when I say that to other entrepreneurs, like, yeah, for sure. Like it doesn't matter your bottom line or it doesn't matter your gross income, right? What are you netting at the end of the day? What are you bringing home? And, I've talked to companies, a couple guys that are, speakers, right? And they pull home 500,000 a year, but their in revenue is, 600. And so they don't qualify for organizations like EO. And I'm like, that's who we should have in there is
Yeah.
folks that are like killing it. And now he might need to like step out of the business and like still make the income if he wants to grow. Cause if he's not speaking, he's not making money. So there's something EO could help him with. But like at 600, like he's making way more money than a lot of people
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
EO. Like if you came to us and you're like, yeah, Randall, we have 50K for a site. And I'm like, great, here's a $50,000 proposal. Like to me, something sits off about that. Like client would be running, well, is it worth 50K? Like, can you show me how it's broken out? And like, yeah, I could show you how it's broken out, but all those numbers I could just put in there. You know what I mean? I could show
Yep.
you exactly where it is, but that's easy to do. When it's like, well, I don't need 50K, I need 35K or 40K, and we use 10K for content development with a third party. That's where I get in ethics, right? Where I'm like, all right, ultimately, we're worth what our clients are willing to pay us, and that's sometimes 15,000 for a restaurant or 300,000 for a school down in Parker, um, everywhere in between.
Yeah.
And some of the scopes are very similar. And how do I think sometimes I'm very much like, "Ah, well, we did the same scope for 100 grand and we did the same scope for 30 grand. Granted, it might have been a different team, different process, and honestly, it took longer to do this corporate site because there's the corporate red tape and the
Yep.
hoops that we have to jump to
Approvals and all that.
approvers. Yeah, year and a half for 15-page site, and then you have this small business, and that is the same size site, but they don't have 100, so we're gonna do it 35, 40. And it's just kind of that where it's like, where do we make our profit? If you come to us for 50, should I fill it up for 50 and try to, even if it costs us 25 and make 25 a grand a pure profit? Or what I have been doing is been like, no, we don't need all 50. You're a small site. We'll take 40, we'll take 35, and let's invest this other in other marketing in order to help our site get exposure or help the site have better assets and things like that, where it's literally pumped out so much of our budgets just to partners without making a dime on that. And
Mhm.
it's hit our profitability pretty bad over the last couple of years. That's my big thing this year is working on profitability because it's been enough to support myself and an employee, but that's someone called it a lifestyle brand, and I was like,
Hmm.
what does that mean? Then I was like, I looked it up. I was like, I don't want a lifestyle brand. That's not what I'm trying to build. So yeah, it is a constant struggle. It's like, how much should we charge? Ultimately, I think people say whatever people will pay you. But I'm like, yeah, but what if it's not best for them? And maybe that's my type two of the Enneagram coming out of being like, oh, I'm being too much of a snowflake or being too soft. But um, yeah, we're not. I don't have. I'm also not on the other side of like, yeah, I'm just gonna be a business straight up capitalist and get as much money out of my clients as I can.
Yeah.
They feel that, and we have clients that come back to me from working, in 2015 at another agency they'll come back and be like, hey, like I moved to a different company. Will you help us out here?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's reputational, but at what point do you start to, you know, I, I, I don't know. It's even hard to say it, but at
Yeah.
what
When do
point do you
you,
start making more money for yourself?
yeah. When is the, sort of the value and, of what you're delivering versus what people are saying? When is it enough?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just, some agencies will start at 100,000 for the same work. Other agencies will start at 25K. And it just is, yeah, they're in it for clients because they're like, I have this proposal for 60K and I have this one for 35K. Like, can you tell me the difference?
Yeah.
You're like,
Yeah.
no, can't.
You're like, it's complicated.
Yeah.
Well, the thing that I thought was really cool is, you guys are like really focused on web design, and there's all the surround sound of the things for, building content, all of the sort of, driving the, people being able to find the site, right? You got organic search and ads, and
Yeah.
there's all this other
AEO.
marketing
Yeah.
stuff, right?
Yeah.
But one of the things that I like that you talked about ethics is you're like, okay, well, if we're going to focus on this thing and we want to keep a good relationship, do we need to recommend other partners? And what does that really mean when one partner is paying us more, right, for the
Yeah.
same thing, but this other partner is going to be a better choice? How are you making those decisions? That's one of the things that I think ethically was really cool to
Big
hear you
time.
talk about.
It just happened 2 weekends ago, and probably yeah, I mean, it was why it was so fresh. We recommended a photographer to go down. He's in Tulsa this morning doing photo shoots of a C-suite for a publicly traded company, and, I gave him the bid. I was like, I'm not making any money on this at all, right? It was 15K for the photographer to go down there for a night, fly down there, do all the headshots, do all the touch-ups. Like, that's pretty, that's pretty standard for the industry. It's not high, it's not super low. Um, and so but the client, which I appreciate, was very upfront. He's like, we love your agency. We're excited working with you, but we're feeling like a little slighted, kind of like I'm pushing this 15K photo shoot. And I was like, that's totally fair. I get it. But it felt really good to say like, I don't get one dime off of this. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing coming to me for this. I looked in Tulsa, which I did for photographers, and I didn't really like any that I saw, and we're up against a deadline. Like, you're having this event next week, and they were totally cool. They were like, "That's a great answer. Go right ahead. Let's do it." So I
That's
was like,
awesome.
"Okay," but there's power to that, and to not accepting referral fees. Now, I think I have friends in referral networks, and I have colleagues, and I've been asked to be part of them. Where people, SEO companies, typically will be like, "Hey, if you refer all your business to us, like we'll give you 20% of their monthly income." I just can't do that. Like, and I'm not trying to be a prince, or like look so good. It just makes me I have to go to bed bed
Yeah.
at the end of the night.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if the clients knew, how would they act? And so that's my big thing. What would the clients think? And that's always like my kind of what guides me is like, all right, like, would you appreciate if I only gave you recommendations based off of who pays me the most, or based off of who is best fit for you? And so that's what we do. It's based off best fit, and that came from my very first boss at the very first agency I worked at. And she was like, she just said we don't accept referral fees. And I was just young at that age, and right out of college, and I was just like, okay, we don't accept referral fees, and that's literally gone with me everywhere.
Yeah.
Is I will not sign any sort of mutual or like some sort of like agreement
Yeah.
where I
Some
will
partner
send.
agreement.
Yeah. So we get to say, hey, here's 3 people we trust. You talk to them. You get to know them. Here's what questions you should ask them. and you pick the partner. And sometimes it's none of them and they go with somebody else and we're like totally cool. And we just make more friends.
Yeah. I love that. One of the other things about, this world is AI.
Yeah.
And there's a way to, build websites, and it just literally is Claude Code or some other, UI engine,
Yeah.
out there. So how are you guys using AI in your business?
Um, it's every day. I think the big thing is it's very daunting, right? It's so big. Like, oh yeah, we use AI. It's like, and what? Like in blog writings and email writing, or what? Do they manage your calendars, or in what? And it is so broad. And so we made and this is me personally. Like I made the mistake of paying some of our team to just sit and tinker. Like hey, like just show us how we should use AI because I'm running the business. I don't have time to go through and do this myself. And then so the creative team would come back with a million ideas of how we can use it for the creative team. Same with development team, and they're doing their own research and implementing it in their own work, and now project management as well. And then I focus on like strategy and the research side of things. At first, it was just a tangled mess of just a crap ton of like subscriptions,
Yep.
and like
Yep.
do this for this and use this for this, and but once I kind of like once we narrowed it down, I was like, all right, designer, you focus on fixing this one problem, right? Like, what is it that takes a lot of time out of your day? Oh, it's creating the style guide after the site's done. Well, let's focus on getting that AI to do that. And same with PMs. It's like, hey, like it's very annoying to do like calendars when our clients have 7 clients that need to be on the call. Like, how can AI help you with that? And then I use it for a lot of copywriting, strategy, and usually, basically, I just talk to it. I upload all our clients' information, all the phone calls, all the research that we do, any documentation that they have or research they have. I have it do its own online research, and that way, I'm talking to a project in Claude that has all the information and like, hey, what did Chris say about having a team component? And be like, oh, Chris hated the idea, but Doug loved the idea or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, we use it every single day. We just had a conversation before this about how we, can implement it even more so. But it is, it's huge. There's just so much. It's hard to find out where to start, especially if you're a small business. But it's kind of cool in a way where it will help you use it. If you ask
Mm.
the right questions and you have the patience for it, like it'll help you use it. And if you're a small business, it could help you. I have it connected to QuickBooks. And I was like, hey, QuickBooks, like what is our average, client collections in the last 6 months? It could give me that answer really
Yeah.
quick. Are we profitable? And I'll look through everything and be like, I think recently I asked it and it gave us a grade. It's like, you're a D plus. I was like, well, that's cool. That's
Good to
comforting.
know.
Yeah. And like, what can I do to be better? Or like, what would you recommend? And it was just pointing out all these
Yeah,
areas.
that's good.
So not just creative, right? Because, the design side, it doesn't have taste yet. It could help you. And we feel more like sympathy for like the entry level folks,
Mhm.
developers and designers, because to get to that level is very easy at the moment. Um, it's the refinement, the tweaking, it's the management and leading that AI on strategy, on aesthetics, and because it will just revert back to best practices
Yep.
for
Yep.
anything.
Exactly.
So you want it to kind of like push the boundaries a little bit, and it really just comes down to prompt. I have like a 4-page client prompt that I enter in for every new client that we get. But I mean, I could literally just keep going on this because it goes down every little crevice of the company. There is some way that we could implement AI. It's just focusing on one at a time, getting that one checked off first before moving on to another one. Otherwise, you'll just have a ton of just goop, like AI goop sitting there not usable.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that you did is you're disclosing when you're using AI,
Mhm.
right, to the customer.
Yeah.
I thought that was really great. Where you're like, hey, here's where we are using, here's where we're not, here's where we're using it to make us better.
Yes. Yeah. It's not, we call it lazy AI versus strategic AI. Lazy AI is, hey, write a tagline for this company and it'll do it. It'll just it'll do its best. But, you know, strategic AI is like, here's all the information about this company. Here's a video of their founder talking about the origins of the company. Give me 5 sample headlines or taglines. I like option 2, but it's missing this. Like, let's make it more confident. Let's make it more bold. Let's make it shorter, longer. Let's make it a sentence. Let's, you know what I mean? Let's make it 4 words or
Hmm.
whatever.
Hmm.
And so it just makes it better. It doesn't even necessarily make us quicker because like it's still taking us around the same amount of time to do these projects. It's just the output is better. Clients are happier and the projects are going quicker. So I guess overall the projects go quicker because the clients have less to get feedback on, where they're like, this is great, this is really good, keep going. Um, but for us internally, it's still about the same amount of time because we're still like, instead of using Figma and moving pixels, we're typing in Claude.
Yeah.
We're trying to figure something out in Claude, but uh,
It's a great way of using AI. I think the the thing that was I would say I don't know 10 years ago, right? When you think about a website versus what it is today,
mm,
what do you think websites should be doing in the age of AI? What do you think should be happening right today, and what do you think it should be happening in a year? What's sort of the future in your mind?
it's what I think what it makes our websites and our work special, and I've heard this from clients and colleagues and developers, is actually the copywriting. And that's where it's like kind of odd that it's the easiest job to take really is copywriting with AI. For for most uses in the business world, like small business world. Now, if you need a copywriter on big campaign work, someone to oversee that and create that copy with whether it's AI or not. But like that's an expense. So like having really intentional headline. We know people don't like to read. We don't they don't, you know, they're not going to sit there and read a paragraph about you, but what they will see is headlines and they don't even read them, but they comprehend them as they go down the
Yeah.
site, right? Nice and bold, they're quick, they're short, they're clean, they're intentional, they're branded. We say it like, you show confidence, you don't sell confidence. And so the sites are getting, the work's getting simpler when it comes to copywriting. And it's where it's getting super complex is in the development side of
Hmm.
things. Um, the people are still using websites. They are AI is trying. They're not there yet. We'll be one of the first to use it, right? Like we're not gonna like it's not like my mom's gonna come out and like, oh, I made this for my quilt shop. Like that isn't how that this is gonna work. It's gonna be us taking it and being like, great, we got it to a point now where we can sell it. It's still so far away from that. So far, we'll see. Because like a year, maybe that is possible. But I think more so if you're walking down the street wearing meta glasses or something and you have, you know, augmented reality, like how are you going to scroll to click on, where's that sign come from? Like, and it's like, oh, you could get this sign here, 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 here. And I'm not going to be like using my hands in midair, I'm probably using my pupils and being able to navigate a website or any sort of digital product with your eyes or facial movements. Um, that's gonna change everything. Is there gonna be hover effects with your eyes?
Yeah.
There's no hover effects on a phone, So
Yeah.
like i- that's what keeps me up is like, all right, what's it gonna be when like, folks are maybe you got your B2B brands that are still at their computers, and maybe they're safe, but what about you're walking down, you see a store and you can literally just like look at it, there's a product, oh, it's on sale, click in the cart, I'll get home. Like that's the more those B2C experiences to me.
Yeah.
Like, how are they going to make everything so, I mean, like everything is so easy for us. You think, growing up with a pager and, you know, like now we have our phones that have more technology than the Apollo missions to the moon. So it's who knows what a year will bring, but I know that it's going to be going down this augmented reality track. And how are we gonna conform to that or get in line with that? That's something that we talk about and developers stress about it.
Yeah,
But
yeah, I'm sure. I mean, because like, there's a infrastructure that has to change. The thing that I think is most likely to happen with AI is like these sort of legacy industries, right? Like we were just talking to a real estate developer, a builder, and it's like he's not even thinking about AI, right? You've
yeah,
got all of these other industries, like you're on the leading edge because you're like, dude, I got it. I mean, websites are kind of like a thing that's evolving. People
yeah,
being able to interact with our business is going to evolve. So you're sort of way up in this sort of like early adopter kind of thing. And it's what I think is going to happen is the sort of chasm between uh industries that have been able to move at the pace of AI and industries that can't that haven't even figured out how to implement it yet. And these our experiences as consumers are going to be spread across that.
And they're gonna hire the kids out of school or whomever that knows how to use the technology in a way that they need, right?
Yeah.
Like, think about like a developer creating multifamily living, right? It's like, do you need a key anymore? Like, let's get rid of passcodes and keys. Like, everyone's tired of keeping track of
Yeah.
both.
Yeah.
And it's considered, it's almost like luxury now to not carry keys because it's on your phone, like you
Yep.
get in your car, your condo or whatever. But like AI will be able just to pick up on whoever's coming. Oh, yeah, this is Chris. He's in unit 201 or whatever. Like there's just so much like that's going to be right there for those kind of buildings. Advertising will change as you're walking through the building or wherever
Yep.
that is. It'll be like, oh, he's visited GameStop the last 10 times. Like, here's a 10% off coupon or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, like and we work with some construction companies that are like of a large scale. And one of the new ones, they're doing something really cool is they activated their 1,000 employees and have a contest going. And they're like at the end of a certain amount of time, whoever brings them the best idea, like thought through and ready to implement idea, how to implement AI into their company will receive a cash prize. And so they're paying for their engineers and their employees to tinker on the internet, which I think is super cool because
Yeah.
in right now you're seeing all these things on the news where people they're using AI to watch people's clicks to make sure or to see if AI could take over their jobs when this company is actually activating their, Gen Z and millennials, Gen X to like bring them ideas of how it
Yeah.
can be better in their day-to-day lives, which I think that's so we're gonna put that on our site. Is like here's that AI kind of philosophy for 100-year-old construction company. Um, that's part of their brand now is kind of that innovation that you don't see a lot with their competitors at all, or they don't like to advertise it, but our client will.
Yeah. I think it's uh probably one of the I don't know if anything that's moved faster and changing. Like, I mean, you think about like last year,
Yeah.
right? AI was sort of like, yeah, people were chatting with Chat GPT, right? And we were
Yeah.
first starting to hear about it. And all of these changes have happened that have been so, so fast. I mean, if you think about it, it's like ChatGPT, people are like, well, now I'm using Claude for these other things. And there's all of these, and you think about the displacement that's going on where Claude, like you will see all the stocks. I mean, these people's stocks are just plummeting from
Yeah.
all of this displacement that's happening. And I think it's actually going to go faster and faster. And so it's really wild to me to see something. Cause I mean, you remember Google, like uh, that was really cool, like being able
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
find stuff,
Yeah.
right? But it wasn't moving at this pace.
No. No, what platforms to use is a whole nother question too, right? It's like, oh, hey, I think we were talking earlier about ChatGPT being quicker for copywriting and imagery, but Claude being good for research and Gemini being good for keyword research, whatever that may be. So not only is it like moving so fast, but it's by the time you finally figured out how to use one, there's like another one, or
Exactly.
there's like, or the methods that you're learning are already too old. So it's very overwhelming.
Yeah.
And that's why you said you have to break it down into like bite-sized chunks. It's like solve one problem at a time with what you do. Don't focus on to do everything in my job. Focus on like little bite-sized chunks. Um, but no, to your point, like was it like Allbirds, the shoe company,
Oh
right?
yeah.
You're like they were just like we're not selling shoes anymore or clothes. We are an AI data center or whatever. You're like, and their stock went up like 600%.
Is insane.
In what you were describing, I think, right, is like the AI bubble that everyone's talking about.
Yep.
I don't know, I maybe it's just, being, born in 87 and seeing like the '08 crash and all these people talking about everything. But it's like the more they talk about it, the feels like the less it happens. Um, I don't know what that would bring for us. Like, middle class, I don't have a ton of money in stock, so it's not gonna like crush me. I don't think. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like, what does an AI bubble mean, or is it, or it's not a bubble? Everything else is just gonna be popping and going into and making this bigger bubble. You know, everything around it. So yeah, it is it's overwhelming. But the key is bite-sized chunks because yeah, it is. Yeah, you don't know where to start.
I like that you were like, it's huge. And it's like, everybody's like, okay, was it huge as in like it's a big deal, or is it huge as in it's a bunch to consume? And it's like kind of both.
Yeah, I think there's things, you know, throughout my career that like fads came up. They're like, "Oh, this is the new social media platform. This is the new tool for this." Skype died, right?
Yep.
Like Skype was huge, or like Zoom wasn't a thing until like COVID. Like
Yeah,
for us at least, I did my whole career over the phone selling creative. Like that's crazy. Now I could show them and talk them through, and
exactly.
like Zoom created, just blew up out of that. And so like yeah, there's these industries all around it that are just going to like not leech but just be supported by this AI bubble. And those are the ones where I'm always like, "Oh, what when clients come to us, they have really cool ideas, folks for apps. I'm like, this is a really cool idea, but then you go down this whole thing. They just want to set it and forget it
Yeah.
and be rich."
Yep. Well, we've talked about a lot of stuff. I got one last question for you. For the entrepreneur who wants to move away from the do everything for everyone model and take Groundwork's example of building something more specialized, what's a step that they can take to move towards that shift?
It's sometimes it always isn't like the answer to this isn't always like the most profitable answer, but we push specialists and not generalists. And I can't speak for all industries. This is all I've ever done, but these big projects that we've won with big companies, they praise us on that. Of like, we're not after, to be like, these companies, these other agencies are like, "Hey, Chris, what would you do with 20% more leads coming to your website? Like, how would you do if those converted higher or whatever?" Like that's not how we operate. And y- the the answer is in specialization. I feel like it's always has been, and then it grew to this thing where like technology gets better and you can offer more services with AI or without AI. It's just easier to do a lot more services within our industry, but harder to do them on a higher level. And the advice is to specialize and focus because you don't have time to learn it all. Um, i- Not to go back to bite-sized chunks, but it is. It's being the expert at it, obsessing over it. Like my Instagram feed is design and development
Hmm.
and different and be fans of the industry like we are. We have Slack channels where everyone puts in creative inspiration, talks about cool things other agencies are doing, never in like an envious way. Although I say that and I think of that scene from American Psycho where he holds up that business card and he's like, "It's bone white."
Yeah.
Yeah, like I do get that sometimes where I'm like, man, this agency is producing such good work. But it's because we're curious. And that's one of our core values is, be curious because ask the questions, ask the right questions to the right tools. And that's weird to say ask the right questions to the right tools, but that's literally
Yeah.
what it is. Like learn how to use these tools in order to make yourself better at your specific craft. Um, and I think people are starting to see through the full service idea.
Yeah.
So, anyways, that's like, yeah, what I would say is to specialize, become a specialist and not a generalist.
I love it, man. Well, I wish you guys nothing but the best. It's awesome to see the cool work that you've got going throughout town. And,
Thank you.
I think it's awesome. One, I love that you're a frameworks guy, right? You're talking about EOS and,
Yeah.
right. And you're doing Enneagram and all these things to understand each other, understand yourself. It's pretty awesome to see, what it is and what you're contributing to the community.
Thanks, man. Appreciate that. Yeah, this is we're good at what we're good at. And like I said, specializing, we suck at finance, we suck at business models. You know what I mean? Leadership is always a thing. But yeah, there's so many good tools in Denver and online and to kind of give in and be like, I don't know certain areas and to work on those.
Yeah. It's good, man. Well, thanks for coming in.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.